Hey guys, buckle up, because you're about to hear how a routine flight to a medical conference went from "could I get some water" to "this plane isn't going anywhere." And trust me, you probably won't survive this one without shaking your head at least 12 times. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Oh, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there, because somewhere out there, someone's hearing this story while waiting for their own delayed flight. It starts 3 days earlier, with Dr. Jasmine Washington hunched over her microscope in a neurology lab at Howard University Hospital. She's mid-analysis when an email pings zone of those subject lines that makes your brain do a double take. The International Medical Sciences Conference in San Francisco wants her to present her research on racial disparities in pain management. Sunday. That's in 72 hours. She's equal parts thrilled and mildly nauseous, the kind of news that makes you want to high-five yourself and cry into your coffee at the same time. Historians still argue whether opportunities arrive at the worst possible moment or if they just feel that way. Her work? A meticulously documented study showing how Black patients receive less pain treatment than white patients with identical symptoms, something that could change medical protocols nationwide. And for that, she's not showing up wrinkled and exhausted from a cramped economy seat. She cashes in 3 months of savings for a first-class ticket, a calculated investment in arriving polished, rested, and ready to go toe-to-toe with a room full of mostly white, mostly male physicians who may not want to hear what she has to say. Packing that night is part logistics, part ritual. Alongside her presentation slides, she tucks a framed photo of her grandmother Esther's ignored chest pain decades ago, turned out to be metastatic cancer by the time doctors took her seriously. That loss pushed Jasmine through med school, grueling residencies, and even night school law classes, yes, dual degrees, because apparently she collects them like other people collect fridge magnets. She lays out her charcoal, professional enough to command respect, but not flashy enough to be called unprofessional by the peanut gallery, and sets 3 alarms. Dulles International at 5 a.m. is all business travelers with lattes and kids dragging plush dinosaurs on leashes. Jasmine heads to TSA, pre-check her splurge to avoid unnecessary delays, but gets pulled for secondary screening. No reason given, unless you count the unspoken one. She watches white passengers breeze through, while a female agent tugs on gloves and says, "I'll need to check your hair." Side note, in 18th century Europe, people hid keys, coins, and even small pets in elaborate wigs. No one's found contraband in Jasmine's twists. By the time she's repacked, she's met Terrell Jackson, another Black professional heading to San Francisco. They swap stories about first-class side-eye and survival tips. It's almost comforting until she hears a blonde flight attendant mutter to a colleague, "Some people just don't know where they belong." Boarding starts, and the gate agent insists she's economy until scanning her pass proves otherwise. On board, the same attendant tries to steer her right economy again. Strike 2. And as she finally sits, a spilled glass of water lands directly on her lap, and presentation notes. 2 hours into the flight, the scent of herb-crusted salmon and filet mignon drifts through first class like some sort of airborne food commercial. Jasmine hasn't eaten since yesterday's granola bar, so she's more than ready for her plate of the good stuff. Vivian, the same flight attendant who tried to redirect her to economy, moves down the aisle like a game show host, presenting each meal on china with real silverware. But when she reaches Jasmine, the smile vanishes, replaced by a plastic-wrapped turkey sandwich from economy. It's the aviation equivalent of handing someone a coupon for a free hug when they order steak. Jasmine points out the obvious passengers who boarded after her are still getting the premium meals. Vivian insists they're out and adds a side of, "You should be grateful," a phrase that's like nails on Jasmine's mental chalkboard. Historians still argue whether that line was invented specifically to shut down legitimate complaints. Either way, it's not working. Jasmine calmly requests the senior flight attendant. Enter David Miller, arms crossed, tone set to irritated dad. He claims they can't have her disrupting the flight, and hints she might be removed if she keeps pushing. The threat is as familiar as it is infuriating black passengers labeled disruptive for doing less than asking for what they paid for. Terrell stands up a few rows ahead, confirming what everyone just saw. She was served economy, while others got the premium meals. David tells him to sit down. Jasmine decides the script needs flipping. She pulls out her medical ID, then another Carter law license. The air pressure in the cabin seems to change. She spells it out. Multiple violations of FAA regulations, the Air Carrier Access Act, and civil rights statutes. Oh, and her firm won a $30 million settlement last year for similar discrimination. David's confidence deflates like a forgotten pool float. Vivian suddenly offers her a proper first-class meal, but Jasmine waves it off. This is about more than dinner. When Captain Hayes arrives, she informs him the discrimination is documented, witnessed, and possibly already on social media. Right on cue, a notification ping comes from somewhere in the cabin. Simeon's uploaded a video. The captain tries to negotiate a post-landing resolution, but Jasmine insists on addressing it now, citing safety violations and crew intimidation that could compromise emergency response. Corporate gets looped in, and suddenly they're taxiing back to Dulles. Passengers groan until an FAA representative appears, asking for statements. Vivian, it turns out, has 3 prior complaints for similar behavior. The airline's VP, Michael Torres, arrives, offering refunds for everyone, while Jasmine receives a request for a private conversation in the elite lounge. Translation: hush money incoming. They slide over a $10,000 offer and lifetime elite status in exchange for an NDA. Jasmine doesn't even look at it. She's got a civil rights organization already collecting similar passenger stories, 37 of them in the past year alone for this airline. She lays out her terms instead: anti-bias training, transparent complaint tracking, an independent audit, and actual consequences for discriminatory staff. So, is the problem? She says when told her list is extensive. Negotiations stretch nearly an hour. By the end, the airline agrees to pull Vivian, David, and even Captain Hayes from the day's flight, pending retraining and review. Only then does Jasmine board the replacement plane, greeted by a new crew led by Tanya Robertson, a black senior attendant whose welcome feels genuine, not scripted. Terrell swings by her seat with a grin. So, did they offer you the airline, or just your own private jet? Jasmine laughs, but her mind's already moving beyond the cabin. This isn't about perks. It's about making sure no passenger ever wonders if they'll be treated fairly based on their skin color. The delayed flight finally takes off 5 hours late, trending hashtags justice for Jasmine and transcontinental accountability riding shotgun in the digital skies. By landing, her phone is a blinking Christmas tree of notifications. News outlets are running with the story. Black doctor lawyer grounds flight over discrimination. Civil rights groups want to collaborate. The San Francisco Medical Conference extends her slot to the next day and asks her to include her travel experience. Historians still argue whether viral fame is a blessing or a curse. In Jasmine's case, it's a platform she can't waste. 6 months later, she's back in San Francisco, this time as the keynote speaker at the American Medical Association's annual conference. On stage, she connects transportation discrimination to healthcare inequities, how missed appointments and delayed care compound systemic health gaps. She announces the Equitable Access Initiative, a $20 million collaboration between her hospital, her law firm, and the newly minted Transcontinental Airlines Foundation for Inclusive Transportation. Standing beside her is Thomas Blackwell, the once polished airline VP, now looking like a man who's been through 6 months of humility boot camp. Even Captain Hayes is here, telling her he's now a facilitator for the new anti-bias program, while Vivian, after intensive training and community service, now speaks to new hires about the cost of letting prejudice guide your service. Data shows complaints down, resolution rates up, and most telling other airlines adopting similar reforms. Later that night, Jasmine steps onto the terrace overlooking the Golden Gate, the bridge lights flickering like a heartbeat. A notification pings she's been named Civil Rights Person of the Year. She thinks of her grandmother's words, "They only respect the law, baby girl," and realizes the deeper truth. The law is a tool, but real change comes from people brave enough to wield it. The next morning, she boards a flight home. The crew is diverse, the service consistent. The captain greets every passenger by name. When meal service begins, every tray matches the ticket purchase, said no substitutions, no side-eye. It's a small victory in a long fight, but Jasmine knows systems change in ripples, not tsunamis. Sometimes it starts with refusing a sandwich and ends with rewriting the rulebook. The hum of the engines becomes a kind of lullaby, the cabin lights dimming as the plane settles into its path above the clouds. Outside the window, the horizon fades from gold to deep indigo, the line between day and night blurring just as the line between what was and what's possible has blurred in her own life. She exhales slowly, letting the tension of months unwind, the way you finally unclench your jaw after realizing it's been tight for hours. She knows the work isn't over, reforms can backslide, and momentum can falter, but tonight, she lets herself imagine a future where the measures they've set in motion aren't extraordinary, just normal. A world where a black woman in first class is simply another passenger, where questions about belonging are answered only by the boarding pass in her hand. The sound of cutlery on porcelain drifts through the aisle as attendants clear the dinner service. It's ordinary, almost forgettable, but Jasmine savors of quiet proof that fairness doesn't need to be dramatic to be powerful. She pictures her grandmother smiling somewhere beyond the clouds. The bridge lights, far below now, just pinpricks in the distance. In the stillness, she understands something else. Courage doesn't always look like a raised voice or a courtroom battle. Sometimes it's measured, calm, strategic, a decision to act when it would be easier to stay silent. That's the part she hopes others carry forward, the belief that small stands matter, that they stack together into movements, into change. The engines drone steady. The seatbelt sign clicks off, and the plane sails on toward home. And in that suspended space between departure and arrival, Jasmine lets the weight slip from her shoulders, holding only the quiet satisfaction of having nudged the world, however slightly, towards something better.